Welcome to Cybersecurity Where You Are, the Center for Internet Security's podcast.
Cybersecurity affects us all, so join us as we discuss trends and threats, explore security best practices, and interview experts in the industry.
Together, we'll clarify these issues, creating confidence in the connected world.
Hello and welcome to the show, Cybersecurity Where You Are. I'm Sean Atkinson, CISO here at the Center for Internet Security, joined by co-host Mr. Ed Skodis, president of the SANS Technical Institute, founder of Counter Hack Challenges, and who we lovingly call the Godfather. Ed, welcome to the show, sir.
Sean, it's great to see you again. We got a great episode this time, don't we? I'm excited.
We do. We have a very special guest, Mr. William Wright of Closed Door Security, CEO. William, how are you, sir?
Great, thanks. I'm really excited to be on, especially with yourself and Ed, two behemoths in the industry.
I'll defer to Ed as the behemoth. I'm just going to ask the questions. How about that?
I'm losing weight. I'm losing a little weight. I'm trying.
So, William, you've had really, I would say, a phenomenal career. There's a lot of things that you've done in this space, but really, I think at the heart of closed door security and yourself is penetration testing. And what I want to do is kind of, if you could take us back to your first penetration test engagement, what that actually looked like, and how now it's different in the day-to-day penetration testing when you do a comparison from what it was to where we are today.
You know, there's an interesting thing. You've got the closed door security penetration tests, which really, if you look in the grand scheme of things, only goes back 6 years ago. And then you've got my first penetration test. And my first one was back in the day when OSCP was a real certification that you actually had to do some hacking in. When it had the buffer overflow in it, back in the good days, no training, nothing. My first ever one was actually on HackerOne, roughly when it first started, once the US Army got on board with it. And I was doing some bug bounty on that, found a blind SQL injection on one of their web apps. And in very typical bug bounty fashion, they said that's not an issue. And then all of a sudden I couldn't reproduce it. So yeah, that's like, and that's, we're going back 10, maybe 12 years there. And then going through the journey from that into actually developing into a pen tester through my career and then starting a business, even just in that period of time, things changed a lot. Like there was more and more training coming around. There was more people coming out of university who were actually skilled at it. And the methodologies and stuff started to develop as well, because back when I first started, there wasn't really written methodologies anywhere. There was no guidance on this kind of stuff. It was just, you figured out how things worked and then you played about, you broke something, and then you told someone. That was it. It was very much a cowboy industry back in the day. But then the engagements through closed door security, some of the first ones we got, they started off really, really simple. It was Active Directory stuff. It was web apps. It was looking at routers. And then you look at it now, and we're doing what's called threat-led testing, where you're taking threat intelligence to enrich the testing process, looking at the different vectors and TTPs that could be applied and running through those. The level of kind of complexity has just grown significantly to the point where it's actually, most good pen test companies these days are really APTs. Like they're just on the right side of the paywall. They're really highly skilled. They've got incredibly advanced tool sets. And back in the day, that just didn't exist unless you were at state level, CIA or whatever. So yeah, it's going from back when I started to now, that it's night and day difference. The expectations on pen testers as well is through the roof. Like there's even junior testers these days. If you're not coming out of university being a number one at CTFs, you're basically not getting looked at. Anybody who's 10, 15 years experience in IT, if you've not got 4 or 5 pen testing specific certs under your belt, you're just not even getting an interview. Like I really feel for people joining this career, but that just shows the level of advancement. And then on the flip side, with the recent AI stuff, you're almost getting rid of that whole tier of junior testers. So the ones coming out of universities, the ones who are trying to transition through careers, that job almost doesn't exist in some forms anymore. So yeah, it's been really interesting to watch the industry advance, and there's positives and negatives on both sides. But yeah, it's crazy to see how different it is day to day.
It is, absolutely. Ed, I mean, you've been following this journey, right? I mean, in fact, I would say you've evolved that journey through SANS, through your own teachings and things like that. What do you think?
So I actually did my first penetration test, my first professional paid penetration test. I had done some stuff before then in college, but didn't we all? But it was 1996 that I did my first professional penetration test. I was working at Bellcore, pen testing some of the original Bell operating companies. We had a tool that we developed in-house called Pingware. And Pingware was an automated vulnerability scanner. And this was a few years before, or immediately before Satan came out. Pingware had 7 vulnerabilities it could discover, 7 of them automatically. One of the biggest ones was writable NFS shares, which we went to town on back in 1996. I looked it up this morning, and it looks like Nessus has over 420,000 plugins. So we went from 7 vulnerabilities in Pingware to now 420,000 vulnerabilities that Nessus can find in the space of 30 years. So I've been doing the pen test space for 30 years. And just to kind of show it how it's evolved, I just got back from DEF CON. And at DEF CON, people will ask you your NIM or your handle. And most people call me Ed Scotus. Some people call me Skodo, S-K-O-D-O or SK0D0. But I always believe that your NIM should be given to you by someone. So my first NIM from when I started going to DEF CON, by the way, this was my 30th DEF CON, my first NIM was given to me by Priest, who was the head goon for many years early on. And Priest said, I'm going to call you Cato. And I think this says something about the industry, because when I first started going to DEF CON 30 years ago, the reason Priest called me Cato was based on the Pink Panther movies. You remember those from like the 70s. And Inspector Clouseau hired a ninja to attack him. So he was always ready to be attacked, right? So Cato was the hired attacker. And Priest gave me that name. He says, because people pay you to attack them. This was novel 30 years ago at DEF CON. Not everybody was a professional pen tester at DEF CON back in those days, and I was sort of a strange beast. But I never, I never really liked being called Cato. So I evolved Cato into Skodo and Skodo into, well, here I am at SCOTUS. But also, talking about this professionalization and training thing, William, you nailed it. You were spot on how things have really gone up since those early days 30 plus years ago. I remember when I first wrote SANS' first pen testing course, SANS Security 560, Network Penetration Testing and Ethical Hacking. When I first wrote it, it was what I had been doing. This came out in 2006, 2007, and it's what I'd been doing for 10 plus years. And we released it. And there were other people I know and respect said, well, that's not what pen testing is. It's this. Or it's not that, it's this. It's not that. And I even got a call, from the CEO of SANS saying, did you screw up here? People are saying that's not what pen testing is. And I'm like, well, that's what people pay me to do, and they're writing me checks. So SANS kind of doubled down and said, no, this is what pen testing is. This is what the profession is. And that did get some legs, but it was like a slog for the first year or so of that class to have people recognize, no, this is the thing, focused on business risk, trying to find that through vulnerability, through exploitation, through pivoting, lateral movement, et cetera. And then, another data point on that, as I remember, SANS came to me a couple years after 560 debuted, and they said, could you write a web app pen testing class for us? Because pen testing. And I said, I can't. That's not my big area of expertise. And they're like, well, it's pen testing. I mean, how hard could that be? So I actually had to assemble a team of people who knew how to do web app pen testing, and they created what became 542 for SANS. So it has evolved a lot, and now it is much more formal. Now there's, college and university courses and majors in it, and various certificates, all over the world. It's changed dramatically, and has become professionalized. And that has some good things and some bad things about it.
Absolutely. Just wanted to pull on a thread that with William, the CTF piece. I'm a big fan. I think that helps develop I think tuning the skills in some cases, or even developing skills in that area. Have you seen, CTFs, as you mentioned, if you're not at the top, it gives you some credence. Ed, obviously developing Holiday Hack Challenge for many, many years. It's very important. I think that's both a contribution, but also an assessment of skill that I think allows others to express themselves versus, again, I'm going to go down this path, versus just getting the certification, very important. But I think the CTF adds something else that you're involved. It's really a community element piece of it as well. But William, I wanted to get your thoughts on the CTF piece as well.
Yeah, I think so. CTFs are. I'll caveat this with I'm really bad at CTFs. Right, I'm going to start there. I'm really bad at them. Put me in front of a real system and I'm fine. Put me in front of one that's engineered to fail. I'm not very good at that. But CTFs, and you mentioned there that it's the community aspect. A pen testing team is never one person. You can maybe have some people who do a project on their own, but there's always stuff in the background going back and forth between people. Now, most courses, certifications, universities, they don't teach that teamwork within a pen testing team because everybody has specialisms. No matter how good you are as a generalist, there's always one thing in your tool bag that you're better at than anybody else on the team. And in CTFs, the vast majority of times you're working as a team. It's very rare you're on your own. And as that teamwork kind of goes through the whole challenge, you start to develop that. Oh, I know he's good at this, so I can get initial access. Maybe then somebody else is better at Prevesc than me. Somebody's better at writing shellcode than me. So, and you can pull it together and really develop that skills and the communication, which is all too often lacking in people who are skilled at security. The communication and the teamwork and the camaraderie, it just doesn't exist. And I think CTFs are a great way of showing that example. Like in the UK and in the EU, there's a few, I would call them government level CTFs, where students from universities go around and represent the country. So like Germany, UK, etc. And it's the best of other CTFs. They get just dumped in a room together, never met each other before. They all go off and do it. And obviously, some people come out on top, some people come out on the bottom, but that helps you to develop and understand, because you must really quickly learn each other's skills to be able to deliver at such a high level in such a small time frame with people you've never met. So it's that socialization really, really improves the capabilities of a tester in my eyes. And CTFs, as I said, I'm not very good at them. I'm really not. But the people who I've worked with or who have worked for me that have come out of top level results in CTFs have been phenomenal, like absolutely phenomenal. I've talked about one in particular on other podcasts who still works for us, and he was number one in every CTF he went into. 17-year-old kid when he first started working for us, and just incredibly gifted and skilled at what he does. But he had the full package because he'd been doing the CTFs. He knew how to communicate with people. He knew how to write reports. He knew how to do everything that a good pen tester does. And yeah, I have mad respect for CTFs and the people who compete in them.
Wonderful.
Zero-day attacks involve vulnerabilities with no fix. They lurk in the shadows without your knowledge, getting up to no good. This doesn't bode well for your endpoint security. With zero-day threats hidden in plain sight, most MDR solutions simply aren't up to the task. You need something different. Turn on the lights with CIS MDR. Available exclusively to paid members of the MSISAC, CIS's MDR delivers more than alerts. Delivers action by transforming raw telemetry into clear prescriptive steps. CIS does this using behavioral analysis, helping you stay protected against zero-day attacks and other threats you don't know about beforehand. Especially coupled with the 24/7/365 CIS SOC as your full-time cyber defense partner. And let's not forget CIS MDR's hosting options in the GovCloud and commercial cloud, supporting your compliance needs. Fully managed and monitored, flexible hosting, CIS MDR's got your back. So get started today by visiting cisecurity.org.
So Ed, obviously developing these, you have the platform, tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands over the time you've been running holiday hack challenges. That you see that, I'm sure. But any thoughts you have?
Sure. Oh gosh, so many thoughts. So I'm a big fan of CTFs. Been playing. My first CTF I played was at DEF CON, and it was playing for the Black Badge. Came in second. My team. It's a great team, the Immunix team. Played again the next year. Came in second. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. So I have a great fondness for this. We do Holiday Hack Challenge every year. It'll be coming out this year, November 18th. We have 20,000 people play. Then we do SANS Net Wars, which is a big CTF that we run at SANS events. My team, works on these events constantly. It's a major thing that we do. And I have concerns. When I was at DEF CON, there were a lot of people lamenting the death of CTFs, or that CTFs would never be the same again. A lot of people were talking about that because of AI. and the rampant quote unquote cheating of AI. Now, we've been talking about this, at SANS and at my counterhack team for the last really 4 years. We've tried to embrace AI because it's just part of how the job is done now. So we're trying to write AI friendly ranges and AI experimental ranges and such. And for this year's holiday hack, we're allowing people to use AI to help solve the thing because that's what the job is based on today. But we're having 4 different categories of prizes. William, I think you're going to love this. Okay. First category is most creative. And you can use a CTF or not. Totally up. I'm sorry, you can use an AI or not. It's totally up to you. Most creative. Next one, best technical answer. Use an AI or not. It's very likely the best technical answer will have some AI involvement. Most creative, maybe not. But I mean, we'll see. We're open-minded on that. Next one, best use of AI. So this might be specific ways that you created your harness. It might be specific skills that you employed, specific ways you applied it. I'm really excited about that one. Of course, that one requires AI, right? So best use of AI. The 4th category, and this is the one I think William might really like, is most professional report, done as though you were a third-party consultant. So you're writing a report for Santa Claus. It's just got to be the best pen test report you've ever seen. You could use AI or not. So we're trying to lean into this whole AI thing. My own team has been discussing, is it fun anymore to play CTFs? I mean, you could play as a human without an AI, and you're probably going to get your butt handed to you because somebody with an AI is probably just going to kick it, right? So is that really fun anymore? I mean, it's really fun when you solve the thing, but when you solve it and you're the 47th person who solved it because the other 46 all used AI, there's discussion on my team, almost despair of losing the joy of CTFs. That bothers me. And I actually called the business unit lead of SANS this morning for ranges. And I said, look, this is not the death of CTFs, but we have to take it to the next level. We have to somehow figure out how to make AI-enabled, AI-enhanced, AI-based CTFs just as fun as the regular kind. Now, obviously, you could say, well, let's just do a human-only CTF. You're not allowed to use AI. You only apply your human skills. And I think there's a place for that. But how do you police cheating? Are we going to do a drug test on you or something? How do you do an AI test on you? I've talked with folks like Jason Haddix and Jonathan Hammond. Are there ways that you could build the thing that it's AI resistant? We've even talked about giving assets that are just so padded with garbage that it fills the context window of the AI. So, download this small text file that's only got 1,024 bytes of something interesting, but it's padded out with all this other garbage just to fill up the context window of the AI so it gets confused. That's not a practical strategy, though. It's short-term Band-Aids. But I guess, putting off the despair, there's opportunities to take CTFs to the next level in the age of pervasive AI. What those opportunities will manifest, we're trying to figure out now.
It's interesting, Ed. You've hit a point that I've seen multiple times in my career, is that people are saying AI is cheating, but they also said that about Metasploit. They also said that about OWASP or Satan, or Nessus or Tenable. They also say that about Nikto, even as far as that. Like every single tool has been called a cheat at some point. Yeah, and I think I have, again, great respect for people who build CTFs because I know how complex and difficult it can be. And the building it to almost make it more difficult for the AI than it should be is probably going to make it interesting again. Because most CTFs you could throw a harness at it, it's probably going to get 90% of the way there for you. But if you start throwing things in there that trip it up, like you said, the massive text files with nothing in it, or maybe prompt injection back into it when it reads something.
Yeah.
Switch off everything now. Things like that will just make it more interesting again. And there's just going to be a bit of development time between understanding where we are now and a CTF that actually brings the fun back in it. Because you're right, if you're sitting in front of a CTF and 46 out of the 47 have used AI, but you've not, I mean, great, good for you, but they probably won on points.
That's right. Yeah. Times of great change, and that means great opportunity.
Exactly. Oh, it does. It does. Absolutely. And I think even, when we go back, William, using a calculator was seen as cheating when those were first brought in, right? You do it all in your head. No, we got a calculator. Okay, that's never going to take. It's never going to work. Too easy. And now
I
we're
had
here.
the cliche response from the teachers: "You're not going to have a calculator in your pocket when you're needing to do this." Like,
exactly.
exactly.
Right.
I've got a whole microcomputer now.
Exactly. Wonderful. But I think this is just going to a different point here, though. One of the things you've talked about, William, is terminology and how important words are. So AI and machine learning get put together. Penetration test and vulnerability scan, in some cases, are also put together. And that interchangeability is not something that we see, right? We want to be very precise in terms of the language, because that imprecision, one, can provide bad decisions in some cases, misinterpretation of results, or misalignment of resources. And so I wanted to get into that as well, because something you've talked about, and I wanted to dive into it here about that precision.
Yeah, so there's tooling itself has developed over the years. Now, like any industry, if you look at the more skilled industries than us sitting at keyboards, your laborers, your joiners, your electricians, etc., they have advancements in tools, and that helps them to be more efficient, or they become safer or better at their job. What we get is we get more efficiency and more cost effective whenever we get advancement in tools, for the most part, if you exclude AI, because sometimes that makes things more expensive. The downside to that is our tool sets in industry that end up getting developed for pen testing usually have such a wide berth that they're trying to address that it's almost impossible for them to be really good at everything. Kind of similar to a person where you can have somebody who's fantastic at generalist, across all domains, but they still have a specific skill set. Tools which are developed and become generalist have these shortcomings that need to be filled in by people. Now, vulnerability scans are, by definition, an automated tool running a scan and potentially verifying that exists beyond just some evidence such as headers or maybe a tag somewhere that says, yes, this is actually valid, or a version number. A penetration test, by definition, should be human-led, where the exploits or vulnerabilities are actually verified. However, I see quite a lot in the industry companies selling a vulnerability scan as a penetration test. So they'll, a similar price, similar sort of time frame, but all they'll do is they'll run Nessus or Qualys or something against some public-facing endpoints and say, here's your report. Now, I've come across that 2 times this week already, where we're speaking to customers who like, oh yeah, we've had this before. Yeah, it cost us this much. And, they've shown us through the reports that they got from last year. You can see straight away, it's even got Nessus in the top of the report. It's like, okay, we're going to have a very difficult conversation here, because I'm going to have to teach you a bit about what pen testing is in order to move this conversation forward. But there's nothing wrong with vulnerability assessments or vulnerability scans. They have a place. They have a purpose. In your risk mitigation plan as an organization, there's a space there for vulnerability assessments. It's just not misrepresenting it as a pen test that I find I'm really passionate in, and I think it's very important to distinguish, because you can end up just masking risks and think that you're safe when you're actually not. Or you could end up setting false expectations, at the exec or board level, or perhaps even to insurers, depending on how bad things get. And the companies that are selling these types of tests, vulnerability scans as pen tests, are arguably negligent and even, I would say, responsible if anything happens, because it is just mis-selling. If you were mis-sold a car, the first thing you do is you go back to the dealer and say, "Oh, I want my money back. This, maybe there's something wrong with the car. It's a lemon or whatever." You can't do that in this world, because it is just a service. It's delivered at the end of the day. And there's pen testing teams that come along, and this isn't unique to us. I'm sure it's everybody who's actually good in the industry. You'll go to a client who's been getting tested by somebody before. You'll find something new that's never been seen before, but they've been getting tested for the past 5 years. And the immediate question from the client is, why did nobody else find this?
Yep.
There's an argument there that it was just because they were running a vulnerability scan. It could be a skill set. And it's having that definition of this is a vulnerability scan, this is a pen test, here's the differences between them is super important. And something as an industry we need to do to educate the buyers of this stuff who are not technical, who are not involved in what we do, and who are actually able to understand what the differences are so that they can make an informed decision.
Agreed.
You know,
Agreed.
in
Ed,
my SANS course on the topic, very early in the course, we talk about exactly what William described. There's a difference between config review, vulnerability scan or vulnerability assessment, penetration test, red team, right? Assumed breach is a form of penetration testing, and we tried to define all those things. But I have a very specific example that I'd like to share with you. You know, this idea of vulnerability scan and just calling that a pen test, really bad thing, but it happens all the time. You're right, William. But now we see the rise of these, autonomous continuous AI red team tools or pen test tools. And I was on a panel at the Adversary Village at DEF CON recently, and the topic of this came up. And, what experience do you have with using those tools? Well, look, I haven't used one, but I have had this very significant experience. A couple months ago, we did a penetration test for a customer that had been using for the last year one of these autonomous continuous red team tools, and it was finding stuff, and they were fixing it. And we thought, well, it's probably going to be a tough slog for us. We did an internal penetration test, not even an assumed breach. It was just internal. That's it. Give us access, VPN, and we'll see what we find. And we found 12 different ways to domain admin. And I'm thinking, well, what did this autonomous red team tool do? So, here we found 12 different ways. You think it would have found some of them at least. Instead,
They should run responder or something.
Yeah, just run responder. That helped. Exactly. And so this tool wasn't doing that kind of stuff. So I asked my my account guy, the guy who handles all our customers, him, Sean Patrick. I said, Patrick, hey, call that customer, find out what they're paying for that tool, and see if they want to take any of those funds and redirect them our way. Instead of doing a pen test once a year for them, maybe we should do it every 6 months or every 4 months or 3 months. And the customer responded, no, we're perfectly happy with that tool because it's doing what it's doing and it's finding stuff for us. And we still wanted to use you once a year. So I mentioned this on the panel. It was Adversary Village just talking about the evolution of pen testing. And one of my fellow panelists said, it's a different bucket of money, which I think is really interesting. So the idea is me as a pen tester, I'm worried that the continuous autonomous red team AI pen test thing is going to take money out of my bucket. And my fellow panelist said, actually, no, he's going to take money out of the Nessus bucket. I apologize to my friends at Tenable. There's a bucket that is separate from the pen test bucket, separate money that you do for the continuous scanning and such. And that's where the AI people are going. Now, it might look to you based on their advertisements that they're trying to replace you, the pen tester, but they're actually going for that money first. And that's finding different classes of things. And I'm like, well, that's an interesting idea. I hadn't thought of that. I don't know what your thoughts are on it, Sean, as a CISO. But I mean, look, we're all fighting for our little buckets of money here. And I was shocked at how little the autonomous AI red team thing found compared to what my team found. And I was also shocked at the customer's response to that because they're like, no, this is good. This is good. And they just viewed it as an entirely different thing. Sean, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think it's, again, there's a couple pieces, I think, Ed, is one, alignment to this evolution. I think there are some that are leaning in, as you mentioned, and some that are either resistant or don't understand the implication. And I think as we try to educate, as it were, this new state that we're in and continuously evolving as well in this space. And I do, respectfully going to vulnerability scanners and that pool, as it were, of money. Yeah, I can absolutely see that being kind of the first target, as it were, because it's going to get into this interchange of I have a set of resources, the budget, as it were. We're integrating these new capabilities. And one of the things I've always tried to guide, as it were, is the next flashy thing may not be the right thing for you at this point in time. And some may be, well, we'll offset, this capability with an AI enhanced element and everything's AI. Very interesting conversations when we're thinking of the utility of the vulnerability scanner, still hugely important for any security posture assessment. And then it's now the AI enhanced capability, or it's this new element being introduced. And it's, one of the things from the panel perspective that you mentioned, Ed, as well, is how that represents to those that are, one, thinking about, well, I need to continuously improve. That's always been part of our industry, right? Continuous improvement. And now I think that's being offset with, well, continuous improvement equals artificial intelligence. If it's not AI, then it's not improvement. And I think that there's a dichotomy there that it doesn't really make a lot of sense when you don't scope and appropriately apply those resources to the underlying problem. And again, it gets into contextual elements here as well. But it's interesting, Ed. These are conversations that I think we're going to have here, obviously on this platform, because the answer is continuously evolving. And I think it would be maybe different in 6 months, different in a year. The way, William, we first started off is, how does penetration look differently over time? I think this space is prime, absolutely prime for change. And then, how do we react to that change? I'll give you one thing that just popped into my head with CTFs. So now it becomes, if you are AI enabled, all right, there's a timed element. Who can solve it fastest with AI? And there's your, get your scoring in that way. Anyway, that just popped into my head.
Some of that comes down to who has the most budget for tokens, too.
That is exactly right. Exactly
kind of a bummer. If you could just blow away tokens, then you win every CTF.
You're going to win every time.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, so just I'm going to give a little bit of background to the audience here. So I have a set of topics that I send out to the team here. And William was like, there's no chance we're getting through all of this. So William, I think we've got probably 8 or 9 parts for you to come back. We've got a lot more to discuss in this space. But I just want to thank you. Again, all the work that you've done, your career, absolutely fantastic. And I just appreciate your thoughts and being here. And again, we'll get you back as soon as we can on the show.
Very grateful for the opportunity to spend some time with both of you. And I would more than happily continue these topics, because for the people watching, there's very interesting ones in there.
There is. Oh, yeah. We've only touched the surface.
William, you're a delight. Really
Thanks,
a delight. I love your approach and attitude toward things. What you've built in your company is just great to see. And I look forward to the next one of these with you, William.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
William, where can people find more about you and your company?
www.cdsec.co.uk. You can find me on LinkedIn under William Wright. Very good looking, handsome profile picture, I'm sure you'll see.
That's CDSec, right? C is enclosed, D is endorsed, CDSec.
That's .co.uk.
Yep. .co.uk. Perfect. All right. Ed, sir, as always, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Absolutely. And thank you to our audience. Make sure to subscribe in all the usual ways with your preferred podcast provider. Catch us on YouTube at the CI Security. Questions, concerns, thoughts, email us, podcast@cisecurity.org. And with that, we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the show today.
The thoughts and opinions expressed by our podcast guests are solely theirs and do not necessarily reflect those of CIS.
Join us on Wednesdays as we discuss trends and threats, explore security best practices, and interview experts in the industry.
In the meantime, visit our website at cisecurity.org.
And drop us a line at podcast@cisecurity.org.
Together, we'll continue our efforts of creating confidence in the connected world.